Hey guys, welcome to my 3D modeling tutorial. In this video, I'll show you step by step how to create a soda can in Blender. Let's get started. The first thing you will do is bring in your reference images. You can get that through the link in the description box below. Open your PureF software and then drag in the images. Next, bring in the front-facing view of the soda can. This is what we'll use to model it. Move it in the Z direction and then reduce its opacity. Then you can lock it. Next, create a new circle, change the vertices from 32 to 16, then scale it to the bottom of the can. Extrude upwards and scale. This will help us to get the basic form of the can. Keep extruding and scaling till you get to the top of the can. Then add a loop cut here to hold the top part a bit. We can unlock this and move it back a bit, then relock it. Now we need to cover up this bottom part. We can use this reference image to check how it looks and then recreate it. Select this edge, extrude, and then scale inwards. Extrude again, and then move upwards. Extrude, and then scale inwards. Extrude again and then scale inwards. Then you grid fill to cover it up. Add a loop cut here and add another loop cut here. We can check how it looks by adding a subdivision modifier and then shade smooth. You can add a couple of loop cuts here to make the faces almost square-like. We can add a loop cut here as well, so that it looks less rounded and more like the reference image. Add another loop cut here and scale out a bit. And we can check out what we have. Next, bring in the top view reference image. Scale it down to match the top of the can. Then move it up close to the top. We can scale it even more to be more precise. Next, switch to edit mode. Select the lower part of the can and then hide it. Then switch back to the top view. Select the topmost edge. Extrude and scale inwards a bit. Extrude again and move downwards a bit. Scale it in a little. Extrude again and scale in. Add two loop cuts here and drag it to the edge. Then select the loop cut closer to the edge and move it down a bit. We can turn on our subdivision modifier to check how it looks, and we can see that it looks good. Next, select the edge and extrude upwards. You can switch to wireframe mode to view how high it should be extruded to. Extrude again and scale inwards. Then extrude downwards. Extrude and scale a little bit again. Then extrude downwards. With the edges selected, press F to fill. Add a loop cut at the top here and move up a bit. This will help us have a more rounder shape. You can add a loop cut here and here as well. You can turn on the subdivision modifier to check how it looks, and as you can see, it's coming along nicely. If you are getting value from this tutorial, kindly give this video a like and subscribe to my channel. This will encourage me a lot to put out more content like this. Thank you. Now let's get back to modeling. Switch to edit mode, click on face select, and then select the single face in the middle. We can switch to X-ray mode so that we can see exactly what we are doing. Press I to insert. Make sure the insert touches this bottom round part of the top of the can. Insert one more time. Now we have some vertices to work with. Now select each vertices and slide them to the edges of this shape. Next, switch to face select, select all the faces, and then insert a little bit. Then move it down a bit, just like you can see on the reference image. You can insert again, but this time you can make the insert touch the smaller shape at the bottom, and you can delete the faces. Switch to edge select, select the edge, and then grid fill. Then we can adjust the vertices to form the shape. Switch to face select, select the faces, and then insert. Then bring it down a bit, just like the reference image. You can add 2 loop cuts here, drag one up and drag the other one down. You can also add 2 loop cuts here to make it more defined. Turn on the subdivision to check what we have, and as you can see, it looks more like the reference image. Now the next thing is to create the opener itself. To do that, switch to the top view in edit mode, switch to edge select, and then select this edge. Press Shift S and then select cursor to selected. This places the 3D cursor on the edge. Switch to object mode, then Shift A to add a new plane. This places the plane exactly on the 3D cursor. Scale it down. Switch to edit mode, select an edge, and then extrude. Keep extruding and rotating to get the basic form of the opener. You can add some loop cuts here. Select 2 edges and then extrude towards the left. You can scale it so it can fit well. Then extrude once again. Add a loop cut here at the top and at the bottom, so as to remove one side so that it can be aligned from top to bottom. Select the vertex, press Shift S and select cursor to selected. This will put the 3D cursor on the vertex. Switch your pivot points to 3D cursor, then select all vertices and press Shift D to duplicate it. Press S and -1 to scale in the negative direction. This moves the duplicates to the other side. Now, all that is left for this is to merge all middle vertices together to form one single shape. Next, select these 6 edges and extrude towards the Y direction. Change pivot points to median and then press SY0 to flatten it. Extrude towards the Y direction and then add a loop cut here. And then adjust the vertices to this round part. Add a loop cut here and scale out a bit. Select these edges and scale out a bit as well. Then select the vertices and adjust to the reference image. Select all faces and extrude downwards to give it some thickness. Raise the opener a bit so that it can be placed right on top of the can. Now we want to bring down this part a bit, just like it is on the reference image. To do that, add a loop cut here and drag it down. Switch to face select and then select the faces at the top. Then press G to drag it down. You can add subsurface modifier to check how it looks now. It's looking good, but we can see that there is some artifacts on it. We'll have to check if our normals is facing the right direction. To do that, we'll come here and select face orientation. We can see that there is a whole lot of red showing on the scene. That shows that half of the opener and the whole can has their normals facing the wrong direction. So what we can do is switch to edit mode. First of all, we'll unhide the hidden part by pressing Alt H, then select all faces, press Alt N and select recalculate outside. Then select the opener and shade smooth. We can adjust it a bit more to make it look more better. Select this edge, move it towards the Y direction a bit, then add a loop cut here to make it more defined. We can turn on the subdivision surface modifier to check, and we can see that it's looking really good. Next, we want to add the middle circle at the top of the can opener. To do that, you switch to edit mode, select this vertex and drag it down. Then press Shift S and add cursor to selection. This will place the cursor right on the selection. Press Shift A to add a new circle with 16 vertices. Scale it down to the circle of the reference image. Then move it up so that it can be visible. Now to give it some thickness, we'll extrude upwards, extrude and then scale in, extrude and then scale in one more time, then grid fill. Since the normal is facing the wrong direction, we can flip it to face the right direction. So to do that, we'll press Alt N and then recalculate outside, and this fixes it. And now we have our 3D model completed. The next thing we will do is to add materials and a label to it. To do that, switch to edit mode, select the metal parts at the top and at the bottom. Open the material property and create a new material. Rename it to metal matte, then assign the selection to it. Press Ctrl I to make an inverse selection, then add a new material here. Rename it to body matte or any name you want. Then assign it to the selection. Drag this window up and change it to shader editor. Click the principled BSDF node and press Ctrl T to load in the label. Press open and select your label. You can get the label from the link in the description box below. To view it, we have to turn on material preview mode. As you can see, the label is not displaying at all. That's because we've not unwrapped our UVs. To do that, switch to edit mode, select all faces, then press U and select unwrap minimum stretch. We can see that it unwraps the UV, but it's not doing a good job at all. So what we can do is open a new window and switch it to UV editor, and we can see the UV that was created. To create better UVs, we need to add some seams on some specific parts of the soda can. To do that, you switch to edge select and then select an edge on the body of the can, then select the top edge and the bottom edge. Then press U and select mark seam. You can select the body matte material here to select the body itself. Then press U and unwrap minimum stretch. And we can see that it unwraps it much better than the last time. But it's still not perfect. We can see that it has some kind of curve on it, but we want it to be perfectly straight. To do that, switch to edge select in your UV editor window. Select an edge, right click and select align vertically. Select the second edge to the right, right click and select align vertically. Select the top and bottom edges, right click and align horizontally. Then switch to face select, select the face, right click and click follow active quads. And as you can see, the UVs are now perfectly straight. You can rotate the can to see the label well. Select the UVs and rotate it so that we can view the label properly. Then scale and adjust so that it can be positioned to your taste. And this is what we have. Now for the texture itself, we'll go into the shader editor and increase the IOR to like 0.9. Change the roughness to 0.4. Increase the anisotropic to around 0.8. Then increase the weight of the coat all the way to 1. You can also increase the roughness a bit. And we are done with the body. The next thing is the top and the bottom side. You can select the metal matte in the material properties section. In the shader editor, increase the metallic all the way to 1. Then add a new noise texture node. Connect it to the base color. Click on the texture and press Ctrl T. This will bring in the mapping and the texture coordinates. Add the color ramp as well. You can increase the scale to a high number and change the coordinates from generated to object, and increase the details a bit to 15. We can adjust the black here to gray, and maybe we can reduce the scale of the texture to a lower number since it's not showing much. Now we have a little bit of it. That's what we want. Move the gray a bit towards the right and move the white a bit towards the left to make it a bit more whiter. Then add one more texture for the bump effect. Connect vector to vector, add a new bump node, connect fact to height, and then normal to normal. And we have the bump effect, but it's too much. Let's reduce the strength all the way down. Like 0.03 will be perfect. And we can see that the texture looks good. Switch to render view mode to see how it looks. Next, switch to solid mode and add a new plane. Scale it up and extrude the back edge upwards. Select the middle edge and bevel it, then shade smooth. Make sure the can is directly on top of the plane. Drag the shader editor up and change it from world to object. Create a new material and make the base color white. And let's check how it looks in the material preview. We can add a new camera, move it up, and move it towards the Y direction. Then press O to switch to camera view mode. Press N and on the item tab, change the rotation to 90:00. This will position the camera perfectly well. Switch to view mode and select camera to view. Now we can move our camera and position it the way we want. We can select our camera, go to camera properties and change it from 50mm to 80mm. Now we have a much better view. We can select the can and rotate it in the Z direction. Then rotate the camera to the view that you want. Duplicate the can and adjust it to the position that you want. You can turn on the camera to view and start adjusting to your taste. Switch to render view mode to view it. I decided to change my plane color from white to black. Then render my image out using cycles. Thank you so much for sticking with me till the end. If you found this tutorial helpful, please give it a like and subscribe for more content like this. I'll see you in the next tutorial.